Hello, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be reacting to IGN's the biggest games coming out in 2025. I have a small, I'll say small to medium backlog of games from 2024, including Metaphor Fantasio, Stellar Blade. There's a few other bangers that I didn't have time to really get to, but let's check out this list. We know GTA6 is supposed to be coming out, as well as Elden Ring, Night Rain, and Metal Gear Solid Delta, which are my top 3 out of probably 10 or 15. Next year is going to be pretty packed, but let's check out this list.
Before we get started, just a friendly reminder, this video is by no means every single game coming out in 2025, but it's a whole bunch of them. We do a version of this video every month that covers upcoming game releases for that month, and those are generally a lot more comprehensive and up to date. But whether you're looking 1 month or 12 months ahead, game releases have a tricky tendency to shuffle around a bit. So
delays.
Video, it might not be quite as accurate as it was when we made it, but we tried our best.
We know.
On January 17th, Tecmo Koei's flagship Musou series Dynasty Warriors
never played it, probably won't.
Which is the first full-fledged entry since 2018's Dynasty Warriors 9. That'll take full advantage of current-gen hardware to flood your screen with enemies that you can then plow through while yelling the titular battle cry of "Die, Nasty Warriors!" That's on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. If you want to make warriors die in nasty ways from really far away, on January 30th...
I heard this series is really good. I've never played them, but I've heard mostly positive, feedback. I'm probably not going to check it out, honestly. Just being honest.
Hyper Elite Resistance continues the long-running and long-range gratuitous Nazi castration simulator series. This latest installment doesn't seem to be shaking up the formula too much, but it's hard to complain about that when the formula involves shooting the private parts off of fascists. Did I mention you can shoot Nazis in the dick? Because you can. That's on all the Xboxes and the PlayStations plus PC.
See how feed us into your Nazi boss.
Inglorious Bastards.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Well, none of the above actually, but it is technically a Bohemian Rhapsody. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 picks up where the first sprawling RPG left off, continuing the adventures of Henry of Skalitz,
This is one that I may get later, honestly late next year or, it's 2025, so I'll get that probably in 2026 when I can get it for $20-$30, but I'm in no hurry to play it, but it does look pretty cool. The first one I heard, it had its issues, but most people seem to enjoy it.
Poor boy with no need for sympathy. And while KCD2's immersive and historically grounded simulation of 14th century Bohemia is by no means easy come or easy go, the deep role-playing mechanics and massive open world means you can take Henry any way the wind blows. It doesn't really matter to me. That's on current-gen consoles and PC February 11th. Scaramouche, Scaramouche. If you like simulated history on a much larger scale and even larger time frame, Sid Meier's Civilizations...
Nah. Just nah. Looks cool, just not for me personally.
7 drops that same day. When a game franchise has had 7 installments over 3 decades, it really shouldn't need that much in the way of an introduction, but in a nutshell, you're in charge of seeing a society progress through history by exploring, expanding, exploiting, and a 4th X word as needed, which unsurprisingly can get a bit complicated. That's out for basically everything, including Linux, but excluding mobile, but that'll probably come later.
All right,
on February
Linux.
14th, Assassin's Creed Shadows sends Ubisoft's flagship open world series into the much requested setting of feudal Japan, and if you can't decide if you'd rather be a ninja or a samurai, great news, because this one lets you do both.
I love ninjas, I love samurais, I love Japan. I don't love Ubisoft. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks to its dual protagonists, that's going to be on current gen and PC. If you're feeling lonesome on Valentine's Day, there's also Date Everything, a sandbox dating simulator where you may in fact be able to date an actual sandbox. And if not, there's 100 other anthropomorphized inanimate objects with which you can become romantically involved, from the windows to the walls, or at the very least, the floor. And they're all fully voice acted. That's on PS5, Xbox Series, Switch, and
I'm not
PC.
Gonna say that.
On February 18th, Obsidian's Avowed hits Xbox Series and PC.
Okay.
See, this is set in the same fantasy universe as the studio's isometric Pillars of Eternity games, but in this case it offers a whole new point of view thanks to its first-person perspective and real-time combat. It may look like Skyrim, but don't expect an epic time sink. The devs have said it's more comparable to the Outer Worlds, which is great news for anybody.
Okay, Avowed is one of those that's in my top 10 for next year. So I like Obsidian. I love Fallout New Vegas. I enjoyed the Outer Worlds. I think it's one of the games that had I said if it got a sequel, it would have the most potential, especially if they got a larger budget. I'm excited for the Outer Worlds 2, which is probably definitely on this list at the end or later. But Avowed looks pretty awesome. I like the color palette. I like it gives me slight Oblivion vibes with the color palette. The combat looks better than Skyrim. If I'm being honest, it looks like it's more fleshed out RPG as opposed to the Outer Worlds. I'm just excited. I hope it does well. I've never played Pillars of Eternity, but I've heard a lot of great things about it. But Avowed is definitely in my top 10.
Buddy who sucks at finishing games.
I live in the real world, my man, with bills and responsibilities.
Yep.
Speaking of time sinks, if you think it's time to sink some ships and terrorize the high seas, well, you're in luck because Like a Dragon Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii is, well, I feel like the title really kind of covers its bases there. This will see Goro Majima, the fan favorite foil and frenemy to its usual protagonist, taking the wheel somewhat literally after he gets amnesia on a beach and decides to explore a new career as a pirate. Classic Majima. That's on the Xboxes, PlayStations, and PC, February 21st. Pirate Yakuza actually moved its release date up a week to get the hell out of the way of one of the biggest games of the year, Monster Hunter Wilds, which comes to Xbox Series, PS5, and PC on February 28th. Again, it's one of those series that requires little introduction, especially after how many new players got hooked on Monster Hunter World last gen. With Wilds, Capcom is aiming to refine and improve the core experience in a way that satisfies longtime fans and newcomers alike, but also introduce new features that take advantage of current hardware to keep things interesting. Oh yeah, and it also needs to be accessible enough to attract more new players, so if you're wondering why this game has taken so long, that might have something to do with it.
Capcom is love, Capcom is life. I've been a Capcom fan as long as I've been playing video games. I love Capcom. Monster Hunter is kind of at the bottom of my list of Capcom franchises. It's above Dragon's Dogma. I enjoy both of those series, but I've never been a hardcore Monster Hunter fan. Monster Hunter World was pretty awesome. I played the beta for Monster Hunter Wilds and I enjoyed it, but again, I'm just not crazy about it. It's fun, and I'll definitely get it when I can get it on sale for $30-$40. But it's definitely, I know the fans are excited, and it's like I said, the beta was extremely fun, but it's just not exactly my favorite Capcom series. It's not Devil May Cry. It's not Onimusha, which is definitely not coming out this year. But I don't even think that's on this list because it's definitely not coming out this year. But not to ramble.
On March 6th, it's time to buddy up for another co-op adventure from Hazelight, the studio behind It Takes Two and A Way Out. This time, it's split fiction, which sees sci-fi and fantasy authors getting stuck in virtual reality and undergoing a bunch of bizarre adventures together, including
this looks super cool.
Getting turned into pigs, who are subsequently turned into hot dogs and then cooked on the grill. And yes, the hot dogs are playable.
Hot.
Those are the type of games you imagine, I imagined as a kid. That level of creativity is just, it looks pretty awesome. At some point, I definitely want to play that. No hurry, but it looks cool.
Digging it down.
Best of all, buying one copy lets two people play online together. That's on PC and
That's
current
awesome.
gen. On March 25th, you can experience the upper middle class corner of Upper Middle Earth with Tales of the Shire, a cozy life sim that focuses entirely on ordinary hobbit life. For regular hobbits who just like to garden and smoke pipes and drink brandy and have petty rivalries over trivial neighborhood bullshit and probably post mean things on Nextdoor, not, going on long hikes to throw jewelry into a volcano. It sounds lovely. Be a shame if this Shire were to be, ruthlessly scoured by ruffians in the thrall of Saruman, perhaps?
There's mud trotting the carpet. They pillaged the pantry. I'm not even going to tell you what they've done in the bathroom. They've all but destroyed the plumbing.
Well, anyway, that's on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. If you prefer to explore a version of the Shire-like pastoral English countryside that's been doused in radioactive particles, there's Atomfall. Hopefully you put this together, but it's taking some cues from Fallout. This one also leans a bit more into survival than role-playing, though, so I think the software influence is also pretty strong. Plus, it's also showing an alternate future in which a major real-world nuclear disaster went a whole lot worse. That's coming to everything but Switch on the 27th of March.
Fallout, but make it British. I can dig it. If it turns out to get an 8, even definitely a 9 or a 10, I'll be checking it out. We'll see.
To me, DNF has always been short for Did Not Finish or Duke Nukem Forever, which they probably shouldn't have finished, but to a few million other people, it is shorthand for Dungeon and Fighter, the multimedia universe that stems from the 2005 South Korean multiplayer beat-em-up that was released stateside as Dungeon Fighter Online. In any case, that universe gets a little bit bigger with the single-player action RPG, The First Berserker Kazan, which hits the Xboxes, PlayStations, and PC on the 27th as well. On March 28th, the potential Sims killer...
The First Berserker Kazan is definitely my type of game. Hard-hitting, action combat, like maybe Souls-like elements, that Devil May Cry, like fun, flashy, gory combat. Like this might be the first game of the year I buy. It comes out March 27th, but I can't remember what comes out. For me, like January is pretty dry. February, I can't remember, so this might actually be the first one. Definitely going to try to do a playthrough. Not a walkthrough, but definitely a playthrough, maybe a few live streams.
This PlayStations and PC on the 27th as well. On March 28th, the potential Sims killer Ign'S hits PC. This is another South Korean joint, which is hands down one of the prettiest video games I've ever seen. If this one delivers, I could very easily see it being one of the biggest games of the year. Something tells me that after 11 years, 12 game packs, and 17 expansions for The Sims 4, Sims fans might be in the market for something new and different. And there are a lot of Sims fans out there, so I guess they should probably check this one out.
There are tons.
That's on PC for now, with current gen console versions in the works. On April 24th, Fatal Fury gets its first new game this century with City of the Wolves. And while Terry Bogard and Maishir Nye and company have kept busy with appearances in other fighting games like King of Fighters, Street Fighter, DOA, Tekken, and even Super Smash Bros., this will be the first mainline Fatal Fury since 1999's Mark of the Wolves, so hopefully it's worth the wait. That's on both PlayStations, Xbox Series, and PC.
What if YouTube had its own YouTube?
I'm decent at fighting games. Decent. I won't say I'm bad. I won't say I'm amazing, but I do enjoy fighting games. I definitely want to go to a fighting game tournament at some point. This year, next year, the year after, whenever. I think that would be pretty fun. That'll be an awesome vlog, too. That'll make for pretty cool content. Get dressed up, fresh haircut, manicure, dope fit. Go watch some people win a lot of money or lose a lot of patience.
As of writing the script for this video, those are all the major games that currently have release dates, though there's plenty more that we're expecting in 2025. By April, we will almost definitely know when Nintendo's next console will be released, but as of right now, we don't even know what it's officially called. Nintendo has announced that details will be revealed sometime before the end of March 2025, and based on some leaked product listings for third-party accessories, there's some speculation that it's targeting a summer release window. Again, this is completely unconfirmed at this point, but it makes sense. The original...
I would definitely be buying the Switch 2 or whatever it's called, and because I have no self-control, I'll probably be playing Tears of the Kingdom, buying it and playing it again. I love Zelda. I love Nintendo. Hoping we get hopefully we'll get Metroid Prime 4 or something unexpected.
The original Switch was revealed in October 2016, and it went on sale the following March, and the organic buzz generated by gamers and early adopters made it a must-have item by the time the holidays rolled around. Whatever this new thing is called, it'll launch with at least a few games. The original Switch had about 10 games available day one, which sounds underwhelming until you remember that one of them was Breath of the Wild, which kept us busy just fine. It got another dozen or so over the 3-month launch window following its release. Now, bear in mind, a lot of people were skeptical of the Switch at the time of its launch, including publishers who'd been burned by the Wii U. The Wii had been such a hit that there was initially a ton of support for its successor, and the Wii U's launch lineup was almost 3 times the size of what was out for the Switch on day one. Considering that the Switch has outsold the original Wii by almost 50 million units at this point, and it's currently the 3rd best-selling console of all time, I think it's safe to assume that a lot of publishers will want to get it on the ground floor of whatever's next, so I have a hunch there's going to be a few Switch 2 games day one.
Yeah,
You could be right.
good assumption.
You're so right.
There are a couple bigger Nintendo games we are expecting to drop this year.
I just mentioned
Metroid
that.
Prime 4 Beyond was basically just a logo for the better part of a decade, and presumably it'll actually be a video game at some point in the near future, which is very exciting for Metroid fans. That's coming to Switch, but I wouldn't...
There's been rumors online. I don't know exactly where off the top of my head, but it's like more of an open world focused type of game, which, Castlevania, Metroidvania, that would be pretty cool. like how I'm picturing it in my head. So hopefully it's next year. Well, I keep saying next year, I mean 2025, this year or next year.
Wouldn't be surprised if that was also one of the big flagship launch titles for the new console as well. And even if it's not, the new hardware is supposedly backwards compatible, so I'm sure plenty of people will be playing it on there either way. Pokemon Legends ZA is also slated for 2025, which is another entry in the open-world action RPG side series. Pokemon Legends Arceus took some big swings, but it also made the Switch show its age in some areas, so hopefully this one can benefit from some more powerful hardware as well, or at the very least improve on the groundwork laid by Arceus. A rising tide raises all ships, and a new Nintendo console will definitely help keep the games industry afloat a bit, but the other big 2025 release that's sure to make some waves is Grand Theft Auto 6. I don't need to tell you how much excitement there is for this game. GTA 5 is the second best-selling game of all time, and after a 12-year, 3-console generation wait, people really want to see what Rockstar does next. I'm calling it right now, it's probably going to be the best-selling game of the decade, and almost definitely the best-selling game of 2025, assuming it comes out in 2025. It's worth noting that practically every major Rockstar release, GTA or otherwise, has been hit by a delay or 2 or 3 or sometimes even more than that. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's several months, sometimes things get kicked into the next year. So fingers crossed we get GTA 6 on time, but also, expect disappointment and you won't ever be disappointed. However long...
I'm looking for a Kodak Black. I'm looking for gold grills. I'm looking for like Florida Man the game. I don't know why they picked that place, but I kind of get it, and I'm genuinely super excited. That is 1 week of work I'll definitely be missing when GTA 6 releases. And I know I'm not the only one. It's going to be a massive amount of call-outs. I need a good solid week to sit with it, play it, marinate, and play it again. Like, I can't wait. It's going to be incredible. It's going to be something special. I'm really hoping they do something where it's more interiors, because GTA 6, especially with all the DLC and Red Dead Redemption 2, with the amount of things that are going on, that are happening, that you can do, you can interact with. I'm just hoping it's more of, I'm thinking GTA 6 in particular will be the next leap forward in game design. There's no telling what they've been cooking up for over a decade. Maybe it might even be a little more than a decade, but I'm just excited to see this. I'm hoping this will definitely stimulate the game industry for its money, but also push game design forward. Not necessarily that other studios take upon everything that it does, but maybe seeing what's also potential in the following decade. I explained that well.
How long it takes, I'm sure it'll be worth the wait. This game looks fucking awesome. Now then, it's time for the huge big pile of games that we are expecting at some point in 2025, but which don't have specific release dates quite yet. It makes it really hard to figure out what order to put them in, but also chances are by the time you're hearing me list these all off, a few of them will have been given release dates or maybe even gotten delayed a year. So just keep in mind that all of this is subject to change in some way, and please don't be mad at me for things I do in this video or just otherwise. Just be kind.
I want you to be nice.
At least try.
Okay.
Being kind is a lot easier than getting smacked. I think.
Fans are eating good in 2025, or at the very least, eating snakes. Metal Gear Solid Delta, the full modern remake of the fan-favorite third entry in the tactical espionage action series, will be coming to current-gen consoles and PC. And while Hideo Kojima has had no direct involvement with it, aside from, directing the original, it seems like a lot of care is being taken on Konami's part to not totally f*** it up. This showed up in a PlayStation promo that dropped last January, showcasing big, huge 2024 PlayStation releases, and a November 17th release date was briefly leaked by GameStop alongside the Collector's Edition, but was apparently inaccurate. So it seems like we'll be getting this sooner than later, but you never know. That'll be on PS5, plus Xbox Series and PC.
Kept you waiting, huh? That one is like a day one purchase. Metal Gear Solid Delta, a remake of Snake Eater. I don't think I even need to explain how much I love that. Like, also, it's probably one of the next games he's gonna mention. It's supposed to be getting Death Stranding too. That's just a rumor, but a remake of Kojima's, one of his most loved games, and then also his brand new game, is gonna be a good year for gaming. It's gonna be a good year for me specifically, but overall, it's gonna be an amazing year for games. Oh my goodness. I can't wait to play this. I can't wait. Oh my God.
Meanwhile, Kojima's next big
Yes.
thing is Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, which will exclusively drop Anchor on PS5 at some point in 2025, but will presumably wash up on PC, Xbox, and maybe even Mac and iOS later on if the first game's rollout is anything to go on. The other big...
Okay, Death Stranding 2 is probably my most anticipated game of 2025 or early 2026. It's what I'm, hoping. I'm hoping it's this year, but Death Stranding 2, the teaser trailers, the gameplay trailers, the interviews, every piece of information about Death Stranding, the first one in particular, was mind-boggling. I was so obsessed. I was so hooked. I loved every single thing about that game. The Yoji Shinakawa, I think I'm saying that right, all his designs, Hideo Kojima's just game direction, I enjoyed it. Though it was a walking simulator, just everything about that game was such out of the box, left field, like creativity. Like there's so much science fiction and its own fiction just wrapped up into a somewhat cohesive yet incoherent story. And it's like if you gave an indie filmmaker, a very obscure indie filmmaker, a Hollywood, like Marvel when it was at its peak, you gave them the type of budget and just let them run wild, which is pretty much what it was. That's what Death Stranding was to me. I enjoy it so much. Like, it's like A24 at its finest. Like, there's rumors that there's going to be a movie, which it's already a movie basically in itself, with some of the very long and drawn out cutscenes. But overall, I love Death Stranding. My only concern with the second one is I'm hoping they cut back some of the actual walking and move forward with some more combat, because the combat, I enjoyed it. Fighting those primordial sludge creatures, I enjoyed it. Also using the photo mode, which is the most fun I've ever had in any game or will ever have in a photo mode, because the world is so interesting to look at. I'm just excited about it. That's like my number one for next year, even above GTA6, honestly. But I love Kojima.
The big PS5 exclusive we know about right now that's coming out this year is Ghost of Yotei, Sucker Punch's next open-world samurai game. While many games target fall release windows, Sony has the tendency to drop major first-party games earlier in the year. For instance, Ghost of Tsushima was a July release, and The Last of Us Part 2 and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart were both June releases, and God of War 2018 was an April game. But then again, God of War Ragnarok came out in November, so go figure. Hopefully, we get the samurai game in 2025 during one of the months that falls between 2024 and 2026, so we can play it on the PlayStations, which is what you
sounds
do
like a
with the
good
video game.
range.
Sony's been playing stuff annoyingly close to the chest lately, but we have a better idea of what Xbox has in the works. There's Fable, which is dusting off the beloved fantasy RPG series from a few console generations back, but this time Playground Games has been given the keys and is taking the wheel, if you'll pardon the car expression.
I'll allow it.
Playground, of course, is the studio behind the Forza Horizon series, as in that is literally all they've publicly done, so I am dying to see what they do with an RPG. I don't historically give a shit about racing or cars. I can barely drive in real life, but somehow I sunk 120 hours into Forza Horizon 5. So if they can make me enjoy something I don't care about that much, I am dying to see what they do with an epic fantasy game that has wizards and fart jokes and large frogs, because all that stuff is stuff I'm interested in. Anyway, if you're interested in that too, that'll be on Xbox Series and PC at some point.
Part of the charm, I always joke, part of the charm of the Fable series was Peter Molyneux and his Lionhead Studios lying for 2 years, up to 6 months before the game came out, about some of the mechanics and some of the inspirations and some of the things that will be happening in the game. And it turned out those weren't 100% true. However, Fable and Fable 2 are some of the most fun. I think anyone that loves action RPGs or has a taste for that British dry wit sense of humor, you'll have an absolute blast. Like, I played an offensive amount of Fable and Fable 2. I own them currently on Steam, and I dip back into those probably at least once or twice a year. Like, they're just pure fun. It's the only game I can think of where you can kill all the tenants in the neighborhood, buy those houses, and then, if I'm remembering correctly, you could sell those houses to other people or just keep them for yourselves and collect the rent. Like, it is such... Or you can just fart out a random civilian. Like your actions, good or bad, affects how your character evolves over time, the combat and how they look, like it is absolutely a blast. The team that makes Forza Horizon, that them being chosen to make Fable is a very interesting choice. Forza is an amazing looking game, and Fable looks amazing. I'm just hoping they're able to, I wouldn't say duplicate, but also come close to that like type of like overall feel. You know, this one could be a real hit or a real miss. It could go either way.
Another game that probably involves some other large swamp creatures and magic is South of Midnight, which is
This
a
looks
Southern
really
Gothic
cool.
fantasy action adventure from the studio behind We Happy Few that's hitting PC and Xbox Series as well. Hey, you know what game looks really fucking awesome? Doom, the Dark Ages. I want to specifically call out one gun in particular. It's the one that grinds up skulls and shoots them at stuff because that is so over the top and metal. It is just hilarious. There's also a shield with saw blades on it, which seems like a safety hazard. And you can ride a dragon because why not? And oh yeah, Doom Guy has a little fur cape, which it works better than I was expecting. I love what they're doing over there. Each new iteration of Doom feels like a more evolved form of the shit that I was angrily scribbling in the margins of my math homework back in 5th grade. So keep doing what you're doing, id. I appreciate you. Obviously, Doom the Dark Ages is going to be on PC and also Xbox Series, and it's also going to be on PS5 as well.
That one looks cool. It's Doom. Like Doom, I have Doom Eternal. I've actually never finished either one, but they are pretty fun. Just solid, like hardcore, balls to the wall action.
Speaking of Xbox published games coming to PS5, you can expect Indiana Jones and the Great Circle to make its way to the console with a circle button sometime in the first half of the year. And speaking of Xbox published games based on Disney-owned intellectual properties, there's also a chance we'll see Arcane's Blade game at some point in 2025, though that is a...
I'm pretty sure I love Arcane. They made my 6th favorite game of all time, which is Prey. The 2012? What year? It was like 2017. Prey came out in 2017. But that's like my 6th favorite game of all time. The Blade game was announced literally maybe a year and a half ago. Maybe less than that. So I doubt that's coming out this year. But I would like to see, maybe some concept art. Maybe some small clips of the gameplay they're working on. But that is their first third-person game with immersive elements. Marvel's Blade. That there's no way they can fuck that up. Like that could be really something special. I think it's gonna be something special. I have no doubt. I know what happened with that last vampire game that Arcane Studios made that I won't even remember the name of, but yeah, like I love Prey, Dishonored and Dishonored 2 and the DLC. Those are great as well. I've never, as much as I rant about loving the 1980s and the culture, the people, the movies, the music, I've never seen Indiana Jones. Like, not all the way through. I may watch those movies this year so I can make up for that, as well as get that game when it goes on sale. If I can get it for like $30-$40. But Blade, that is gonna be the one in 2026 or 2027 though.
Pretty big if. Game development is arguably an even slower and more difficult pursuit than ice skating uphill, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Daywalker didn't see the light of day until 2026. But hey, on the bright side, that's not the only Marvel game in the works. There's also Marvel 1943, The Rise of Hydra, which is slated for 2025. This is from Skydance New Media, the studio being run by Amy Hennig, who you may know for her work on Uncharted, Legacy of Kain, or Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City. This game will see Captain America teaming up with Black Panther during World War II, specifically Azuri, who is the grandfather of T'Challa. Also, this isn't to be confused with the other Black Panther game that's being developed by Cliffhanger Games, which seems like it is probably even further away.
I'm broke and I need a...
So yes and yes, I'm playing both of those. I'm black, so I'm legally obligated I'm not gonna say that. I'm not legally obligated to play Black Panther, but I do enjoy the character. I love Captain America, and those games look cool. We have to see, the gameplay, what like more of what the story is gonna be. But overall, it looks like a really interesting premise, especially because it's not T'Challa, it's his grandfather, and it's Steve, not in the modern day. I think it's in like France, and Paris, and during a specific time period. Obviously, it's in the name, but I'm glad they went with that choice. It's a really creative choice, and it looks pretty cool. I'm definitely gonna get that. I'm just curious to see what the other Black Panther game looks like because it's from a totally different studio. And I'm thinking those will probably be like I'm hoping not in the same year, but that would be interesting to see. I wonder if one of those games will come out on during Black History Month in February. Anyway,
Place to stay until I figure out what the rest of my life looks like.
So, a couple of days.
A bunch of long-awaited sequels or otherwise new installments in established series are dropping in 2025. Borderlands 4 is the first numbered entry in Gearbox's looter shooter since 2019, and hopefully a new game generates better interest than the movie adaptation did. That's on new gen and PC. If you prefer grind rails to loot grinds, Skate 4 is finally expected to enter early access this year, though they actually dropped the number off of that entirely and put it all in lowercase for some reason. Before you get too excited, it's worth noting this is going to be a free-to-play live service title published by EA, so adjust your expectations accordingly.
what you say? Live service? Yuck. No, thank you. No, sir. No, sir. No, thank you.
I see what you did there.
Meanwhile, Crazy Taxi is getting a similar treatment, and Sega's arcade/Dreamcast classic is being reinvented as an open-world MMO, and there have been some rumors that it's going to drop in 2025, but you never know. At least one of these games better have The Offspring on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
If you like sand, well, get excited, I guess, because we got a couple literal sandboxes on the way. There's Dune Awakening, the survival RPG based in Frank Herbert's spicy sci-fi universe, or rather on the titular planet of Arrakis, where all the sand and the spice is. There's also Crimson Desert, the single-player RPG set in the universe of Black Desert Online, though based on all the trees and greenery, Crimson Desert doesn't actually appear to be taking place in a desert. I don't know.
Both of those look pretty cool. We'll play them at some point. Not in my top 10. But I'll eventually put the list together and round it out. But those both look pretty solid.
Whose decision that was, but I think they should get a talking to. One game that's set in the exact opposite of a desert is Subnautica 2, which will surface in early access at some point this year. It'll have been over a decade since the first game entered early access, and it's attracted its fair share of admirers since then, so hopefully the sequel floats their boat.
Never
or
played
does
the
some
first
other
one.
nautical thing that applies here. I don't know. It's submarines, really. Is that even a boat? It's a U-boat. Is it a U-boat or a me-boat? Sorry, I'll stop.
I like the cut of your jib. What's a jib?
If you prefer stacking the deck to swabbing it, hey, there it is. There's also Slay the Spire 2, the follow-up to the hit roguelike deck builder that debuted way back in 2017. If you'd rather slay some big scary monsters and whatnot, there's also Hell Is Us, which looks like a Souls-like, but the jury's out on whether or not it actually is. What it is a third-person game with melee combat and exploration that probably will be a good diversion for Soulsborne fans waiting around for whatever arcane fuckery FromSoft is cooking up.
Run that back. So this is my number 2 game that I'm looking forward to next year. It's like if you watch Chernobyl, if you were playing Elden Ring or any Souls like while you had Chernobyl on your other TV, and this idea hit you, this looks like I'll probably watch the gameplay trailer and react to that, because they released the like extended gameplay that looks like it definitely looks like it's in a good direction. I'm thinking the way from that gameplay, it looks like it's definitely possibly coming out this year. But this looks awesome. It's like take a Souls-like, make it Chernobyl, which is like a crazy concept, but man, I'm excited.
Monsters and whatnot. There's also Hell Is Us, which looks like a Souls-like, but the jury's out on whether or not it actually is. What it is a third-person game with melee combat and exploration that probably will be a good diversion for Soulsborne fans waiting around for whatever arcane fuckery FromSoft is cooking up. Hey, would you believe that I started writing this script before the Game Awards had aired? Because as it just so happens, the arcane fuckery that FromSoft has been cooking up is Elden Ring Night Reign, a standalone co-op survival game due out relatively.
I doubt you could even imagine it. That which commanded the stars, giving life its fullest brilliance. Oh, the Elden Ring. Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. Man. Yes. That's all I'll say. I'll make a whole video about Elden Ring Night Reign. Definitely definitely do some live streaming. Definitely some gameplay. Yeah, like day one. It's not even on the list. That one is a no-brainer. It's like 1 through 10, and that one's above the list because it's Elden Ring. Like, there's no way I'm not gonna play it. I think Elden Ring is easily in the conversation for greatest game of all time, if not greatest RPG of all time. It's Elden Ring. Like I've said this and I'll say it multiple times throughout the rest of my life. I was not surprised by any of the success from that game. The playing Bloodborne, then playing Dark Souls, then playing Dark Souls 2, then playing Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, then playing the Demon Souls remake. Just the overall heat is like turning on the stove and watching the water boil. Like you could see, like I was not surprised by any of the success of Elden Ring. I knew it was going to be everything that it was, and I seem to be the only person that wasn't a little bit shocked. It was a actual legitimate masterpiece, which we do not get to say a lot. We call a lot of things classic. We call a lot of things great. I think that game is, one of the few games I'll say that's genuinely perfect. I have no ifs, ands, or buts. There's nothing I would change. I think that game is an absolute glorious piece of creativity. Miyazaki the Great. No telling what they're cooking up next. Like, I'm hoping it's something a little bit smaller, and then we get another Armored Core, because Armored Core, that is probably the best mech game I've ever played. But that's, I don't want to keep on ranting. I want to finish the list, but something smaller, another Armored Core, and then the next big game, which doesn't have to be even the size of something like Elden Ring. It just has to be awesome. I want them to do something slightly different in dark fantasy, but it could be, we know it's going to be great, but it could, oh my goodness.
Soon. This is basically swapping the plotting grind of the main game for a more streamlined dash to gather
Elden Ring, but make it Fortnite.
Runes and gear up on a remixed and shuffled map with the lands between that gets even freakier when the sun goes down, and there's also a rapidly shrinking circle of acid rain to contend with, or a ring of rain, if you will. So it's kind of like Fortnite in a weird way, but it's also clearly something else entirely. As much as I love how FromSoft has gradually refined that core Soulsborne experience, this feels like a direct response to all the creative ways that players have been approaching their games. You know, like doing speed runs with DDR mats, or beating the game without jumping or leveling up, or whatever, or making mods where every enemy has been replaced by Millennia and stuff like that. I'm not sure if it's something I actually want to play, but I'm dying to see what other people do with it. I think streamers are going to have a field day, and I think it's going to get real weird. That's coming to all the PlayStations, Xboxes, and PC. BioShock fans have been waiting for a new installment even longer than GTA fans, and while it might not be an official entry in the series, Judas is very clearly a spiritual successor, and it's being overseen by Ken Levine, who first took us to Rapture and Columbia. We'll supposedly be seeing that in 2025 at some point, and of course there's also the possibility that 2K unveils an official BioShock as well, which we've been hearing rumors about for a cool minute.
Ken Levine has been working on Judas for, I could be wrong, like 8 to 12 to 14, a considerable amount of time. It's like a spiritual successor to BioShock with, you know, immersive elements. I've also heard from the last time they showed it, which was maybe like a year ago, that it has like roguelike elements, and also he keeps calling it narrative Legos, where the story changes depending on your actions and, you know, your dialogue and consequences and choices. I'm just hoping it releases next year, because it's definitely definitely in my top 10 for next year. It's a day one purchase. I love BioShock, and I love anything that, you know, gives you those immersive sim elements, you know, stealth, straightforward action. I can move this box to get to the vent to get in another room, or I could just go guns a-blazing. Like, I love that freedom of choice.
Minute now. Hey, speaking of 2K and GTA, if you think Rockstar's open world crime epic has too much twerking and TikTok and stuff like that, you'd rather your crime was a little more old-fashioned and organized, there's also Mafia in the old country, and this looks like it's expanding the Olive Garden's core philosophy of when you're here, you're family, in a big turn-of-the-century Sicilian sandbox. Look for that on New Gen and PC sometime this summer. Capiche?
Well, do you understand?
Everything except capiche.
If you enjoy silly first-person RPGs in space with real-time combat and an Arabic numeral 2 in the title, The Outer Worlds 2 is exactly that. That's coming to Xbox Series and PC. If you like serious...
I already spoke on The Outer Worlds 2. It's definitely on the list. Like I said earlier, it has a lot of potential, and from the looks of it, it looks pretty good. We'll just have to see.
Isometric RPGs in fantasy realms with turn-based combat that faithfully recreates D&D's 5th edition rule set, and a Roman numeral 2 in the title, Solasta 2, is also exactly that. That's coming to PC and probably consoles at a later date. If you thought No Man's Sky had too much sky and not enough mans, well, Hello Games has been hard at work on their next ridiculously ambitious project, Light No Fire. This swaps the deep space interplanetary sci-fi exploration for a fantasy realm that you can wander around in with some friends. Also, this fantasy realm just so happens to be on a planet that you can explore that is literally the size of Earth, like 1-to-1, which, I don't know if that's clear, is a very large place. If you don't believe me, go play Flight Simulator. Or just go outside, whichever.
The second
Light No
one.
Fire is currently only listed to PC, but it'll presumably come to other stuff after that. Oh, and hey, real quick, if this game doesn't have everything you hope it does at launch, maybe just give it a minute. If No Man's Sky has proven anything, it's that Hello Games will probably deliver in time. So if this game doesn't have enough dragons or whatever, don't send them death threats. Don't send anybody death threats. Just don't do that, all right?
I've been a nerd my whole life. Probably the coolest one you ever meet. I've never thought of sending a death threat over anything video game or comics related or movie related. Y'all the wild. Like, that's crazy behavior. That's go outside and hug a tree, go outside and talk to a woman, like go out, you know, like make a phone call to the dentist. Like, that's wild behavior. Also, but Death Threats is a great name for a band, like an indie rock band. I don't know. That's probably already a name for a band, but Death Threats sound cool. Other than that, like, y'all tripping.
Is that a threat?
If you're light on zombie parkour games and dying for a new one, well, great news and bad wordplay, because Dying Light: The Beast is a standalone adventure set in Techland's Undead universe, and that's slated for a 2025 release as well. If dying stuff makes you sad and you prefer a game with a whole bunch of immortals, you're also in luck. Is 33 immortals enough? If Three's Company, 33 co-op players is probably a crowd, but that's what's going on in this chaotic multiplayer roguelike from the studio behind Spiritfarer and Jotun. That is on Xbox and PC at some point. You might have noticed that we haven't really covered any remasters or re-releases, which was deliberate because there's a lot of those, and also they're arguably not exactly new games, but we are making one exception for Lunar Remastered Collection, which dusts off and polishes up Lunar Silver Star Story Complete and Lunar 2 Eternal Blue, which originally released on the Sega Saturn almost 30 years ago. Why are we making this exception? Because Lunar is the all-time favorite game of Amanda Medina, who produces these videos, and when you produce these videos, you can bend the rules and pick the games arbitrarily. That collection will be on basically everything at some point this year. I'm happy for Amanda. It's very nice when your favorite game gets remastered and re-released. It'd be f***ing nice if Sony did that for Bloodborne. There are a handful of games that may come out someday, but which
it's already
getting
perfect.
kicked down the road so many times, it's just sort of a boy who cried wolf situation. In one case, somewhat literally, with Telltale's The Wolf Among Us 2, that was announced back in 2019, and last we heard, it would come out in 2024, but it didn't. So maybe it'll come out in 2025, or maybe it won't ever come out at all. I don't know. Meanwhile, Ark 2 was revealed in 2020, and initially that had a 2022 release date, and it obviously didn't hit that. Will it come out this year? Who knows? And finally, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 was originally supposed to be out in early 2020. I did an interview about that game at E3 2019, and that feels like a lifetime ago. Will that come out this year? I have no idea.
That's before the pandemic.
Now, speaking of lifetimes, we're not getting any younger, so I'm gonna call it. And yet again, let me emphasize that these are by no means all of the games coming out in 2025, and I guarantee you at least one of the games I mentioned will not come out in 2025, because that just seems to be how things go. If you really want to stay up to date on what's coming out, go check out IGN Playlist. It's kind of like Letterboxd or Goodreads, but it's for video games. It's a dedicated app where you can keep tabs on what you've played, what you're playing, or what you want to play someday. Chris, can you please put up a QR code somewhere and maybe like a URL too? All right, thank you, Chris. Everybody say thank you to Chris. And also thank you to Amanda for producing this video. And also thank you to Logan, who manages the big, huge database of games that IGN Playlist pulls from. And every time a new game gets announced, he has to go and update it, like a Pokédex. And I think this year's Game Awards may have killed him. So rest in peace, Logan. We'll miss you. Oh yeah, and one more thing. Thank you for watching. Please let me know in the comments what games we missed and why people should care about them. People are always like, here's what you forgot, and they list stuff. But what if you just actually told me why these games are cool? Why should we care about them? What's so great? What's the big deal?
Okay, cool. Let's check out the comment section. Let's see if he forgot anything. I think the second comment is plot twist. GTA6 will be delayed to 2026. That's a very high probability. Expect to be disappointed to avoid being disappointed. You know. Okay, you skipped Expedition 33 and Wu-Chang Fallen Feathers. I completely forgot about either one of those. But the Expedition 33 does look cool. I'll probably check that out at some point. Yeah, but overall, this is a really great. Oh wait, Gears of War E-Day. So, but I don't think that's coming out. I think they just announced that a year ago. No telling. Yo, so that was a pretty great list. Like you said, there's a bunch of more games that have rumors and are supposedly to be coming out. There are games that nobody knows that are probably coming out next year. So it's gonna be an interesting year overall. Games like Hell Is Us, the first Berserker Kazan, two of games that I'm definitely doing a live stream gameplay of. Maybe even a review, depending on how fast I finish them, because I like to take my time. I'm never in a hurry. I like to savor the flavor. Night Rain, just a few off the top of my head. I'll make individual videos about each of those, especially as we get more trailers, more teasers, more gameplay up until release dates. But yeah, IGN, you know how that goes, hit or miss. But this was a good video. Thanks for watching. Appreciate being a small part of my large world that I'm building. Brandenworld. Peace out.